Kapla, and welcome to another episode of Bat Left Battles, where, as you know, we put 2 episodes of Star Trek into the ring and only one comes out victorious. I need a host today with me, and I'm going to invite my normal host, Kevin Scarf. How are you, Kevin?
Hello, I'm good. It's very early,
It is very early.
but it's good because, we've got busy lives, and so sometimes you just have to record a podcast at 6 a.m.
This is true. Well, it's 11 a.m. for me, which is quite useful for saying the word kapla, because you tend to be quite mucusy and phlegmy in the morning when you get up. So it's like, ha ha. It gets rid of all that kind of nighttime ooze that you might have. Cool. So how have you been?
I'm good. I'm very busy these days. In addition to my normal Monday to Friday job, I've picked up a weekend gig playing Santa at a theme park all summer. So that is why we are recording at this early hour.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's a Christmas theme park for kids, and it's a fun little place. If you're ever in Bracebridge, Ontario, come to Santa's Village.
Yeah, the cognitive disconnect of Santa in summer for me, just those jigsaw pieces will never fit together.
Well, it's called Santa's Summer Home, and we have a little cottage there, and but we also have lots of little rides for kids to go on, and we're on a beautiful river, and so there's a boat ride down a river and all kinds of fun things to do.
Nice. Does Summer Santa have to wear like red Speedos with white fur lining?
Oh, you don't want to see Santa in a Speedo.
No.
You don't.
Does he not have his summer bod on?
I don't wear a full Santa suit, if that's what you're asking.
Okay.
Yeah, but
you don't want to expire.
Exactly.
Oh, that's fun. Well, I just finished week before last a 3-day run of High School Musical.
Oh, I wanted to ask how that went.
Yeah, so do you know what? It's been a bit of a tough slog all year with kind of people, pupils, maybe some staff deciding at various points that they didn't want to do it. It wasn't their thing, blah, blah, blah. So as a production team, we had to kind of deal with this and replace people all throughout the year. But in the end, it's so rewarding because I teach physics. Yeah,
I know,
which is it's so different from teaching music. And I was the musical director, or the co-musical director, with my colleague Jean Roy, who is a music teacher. And it's just so much fun being in the pit, playing piano solidly, literally for 2 hours, keeping up with what's going on stage, keeping the band together. And it was we didn't have a band either, so I had to put a band together.
Wow.
Within a couple of weeks.
Does your school have a drama department? Is there a drama teacher, or
it's very new. Yeah, she's 1 year in post, so she directed it. Great, Jay Riley, her name is. Really enthusiastic. So it was good. So we are post-COVID. I think we're right at the beginning of our musical theatre journey.
Excellent.
And this was our first show with a small cast, most of whom had never been on stage before, and we're just going to use it to build it.
That's fun.
I'm really looking forward to what we're doing in the future. So November, we're normally a summer musical, but we want to kind of change it because our exam leave kind of lies just before that. So you end up losing lots of kids to go off and do exams for rehearsals. So we're going to try and do October, November shows in future. Get us out of the way at the beginning of the year. And this November we're doing Sunshine on Leith.
I don't know that show. No.
It's by the Proclaimers.
Oh.
It's 500 Miles.
Yeah.
Letter from America, all those big songs. So it's very Scottish. Leith is a small industrial town, just I think north of Edinburgh.
Okay.
So it's about that. I think it's about 2 guys that come home from the army and how they adapt to real life.
Very cool. It's interesting that you've chosen such a very Scottish show after doing such a very American show.
A very American show. You know what? It's going to be easier because we don't need any crazy costumes or any crazy staging or any crazy accents because we have those all built in already. So
did your kids do American accents in the show?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Some more successfully than others. But do you know what? We're surrounded by American accents.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
It's fairly easy to emulate it in a rubbish way. It's like Amy's Scottish accent. That is just horrifically offensive. Amy, please listen to this when you wake up. Your Scottish accent is terrible, Amy Nelson. I love your rubbish. Putting it out there. Anyway, I feel like we should move on and do something. What we're here to do.
Yes, I think we should too.
Let's do this. Oh, that's a Klingon communication beat.
I think Klingon communicators blow out their eardrums.
Yeah, I think so. I don't have any eardrums left now. So today, if you were listening to the last episode, you already know what we're going to be talking about. But just for the record, we are putting in the ring Enterprise Season 4, Episode 3, Home, and TNG Season 5, Episode 7 and 8, and that is Unification Parts 1 and 2. It's going to be an interesting conversation. So normally we'd have a third person on to help us decide in case it was a tie break. We may have Ria Papagiorgio joining us, but it's 3 a.m. where she is, and she said she might. We're not hold out hope. She's probably fast asleep.
I'm sure she is.
I believe her training flights got cancelled due to wind shear, so you don't want to be flying a plane when that's happening. So if she's rising from her deep slumber, then she's more than welcome to join us, and we'll let her pop in whenever she wants. We have to keep an eye on the chat because she might be screaming at us from cyberspace to let us in. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Yes.
And in the meantime, it's just going to be Kevin and I making these decisions. And if it comes to a tiebreaker, then we'll take the results of the Discord and Facebook polls.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yes. So, Kevin, do you want to give us a little plot summary of either one of the episodes? And I'll do the other one.
Okay, let me take Home.
Oh, damn you. Okay, go for it.
Okay, so Home, this is the episode that follows the big Xindi arc, really. So the Enterprise is returned triumphantly to Earth, and they're regaled as heroes. There's a big reception for them, but nobody seems very happy, especially Captain Archer, who's Mr. Grumpy Pants. He's not in a good place, and
he's not. It's very sweaty.
Yeah. So he goes out into the desert with the captain of the other NX ship, Erica Hernandez, and they go rock climbing, and basically he unloads on her and says that this mission is stupid. We probably should never have gone in the first place, which is just the kind of thing you want to hear from your captain. So meanwhile, while Archer is out in the desert having some rock climbing fun, Trip
and other fun.
Let's hope. Trip and T'Pol go to Vulcan, where Trip has a sleepover at T'Pol's mom's house. T'Pol's mom is surprised to see him, but notices very quickly that T'Pol is in love with Trip. Which, being Vulcan, it's pretty amazing that they pick up on that at all. But there is someone else. There is a man that T'Pol was betrothed to, and he still wants to marry her. And so Trip has to go to her wedding, and nobody's happy on Vulcan either. And then subplot 3, we've got Reed and Phlox, and they've just gone out for a night on Earth. And
Travis is there as well.
Oh, Travis, yeah. I guess Travis is there. Travis,
I forget. Travis Mayweather and Trip Tucker. Yeah. Like, if I remember one of their names, I always forget the other one.
Well,
I
Travis,
don't know why my brain doesn't compute.
And Hoshi really don't have much to do in this episode.
Hoshi's got some kind of parasitic infection from somewhere.
Yeah, and so she stays on the ship. But while Travis and Malcolm and Phlox are in a bar having a drink, Phlox gets roughed up by some hooligans who don't like his kind coming around their bar. He's not a human. He shouldn't be there, even though the Nobulans haven't done anything wrong. And Phlox has been on Earth for years and years. The patrons of this dive bar just don't like the fact that he's there, and so we get to see the xenophobia that has been taking over the Earth since the Xindi attack as well. In some ways, this is like a day in the life kind of episode. It doesn't have a sort of central plot that drives the whole thing forward. This is sort of a follow-up to what has gone before, and it's sort of a let's see where all our characters are, and none of them are happy, so that's great.
And that is the episode,
pretty much.
I kind of got vibes of was it Brothers or Family, the one where Picard was back home. It was kind of the Enterprise returns home from the last greatest big fight that they had, as maybe not heroes, but it was that very much like that. I didn't, like you said earlier, I didn't like Archer in this episode. I get that he's probably got PTSD from spending a year in the Expanse and dealing with the Xindi and feeling maybe responsible for the 7 or 8 million people that had died in Florida from the first Xindi attack. But he just seems a bit uncaptain-like. Is that the right way to put it? Yeah. Maybe that desert heat and the mountain climbing was getting to him, but it just seemed overly curmudgeonly.
There also was a plot I forgot to mention where Archer is being debriefed by admirals and Vulcan ambassadors, and the Vulcans sort of rake him over the coals. But at the end, when we come back to the chamber at the end of the episode, I think the Vulcan was just being hard on him to see what his reaction would be, because he thanks Archer for everything he's done and knows really there was nothing else that could have been done, because apparently they allowed a group of Vulcan colonists to be killed somewhere. Is that?
Yeah, there was a Vulcan ship that they discovered in the Expanse in the Trillium D, which protected them from the subspace distortions or whatever, was toxic to Vulcans. And do you remember they were on the ship and they kept on being attacked by like zombie Vulcans?
Vaguely. It's been decades since I've seen it, if I've seen it at all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there was a ship full of zombie Vulcans and they ended up having to blow up the ship. But it's one of those tropes where you come back from your mission and the higher-ups question you overly exuberantly about what you could have done differently, but ultimately they weren't there.
Yeah.
They weren't on the ground having to make the decisions on the fly. So,
but not being overly familiar with Enterprise, it's not a show that I have seen every episode of. I did get the impression that Soval, the Vulcan ambassador, and Archer had run-ins before, that this was not a new thing, that that it felt like Soval was really, really trying to push Archer's buttons here.
Oh yeah, I think the Vulcans throughout Enterprise have always been against, like, it's not is it Starfleet yet? No, it's
they
not.
Do call it Starfleet, but yeah.
Okay, so they've always been against
Fleet,
Earth humans going out to explore space, saying that they're not ready for what lies out there. So yeah, there's that. The Soval character, he's been in it quite a lot before, from the very first episode. So he's a regular guest actor. What about, we're talking a little bit about the characters. We already mentioned Erica Hernandez, who is played by, I've got it in my notes somewhere. No, not Leonard Nimoy. That would be wrong.
No.
Who is Ada Maris?
Yeah.
She's been Nurses in Mayans MC.
Mayans MC is a spin-off of that biker show. It was
Sons of Anarchy.
Yes.
Oh, right. I saw the poster for it and thought, Mayans, maybe that's about like the ancient Mayans of South America, and it turns out it's about bikers, so I did not watch it.
Yeah.
I've not seen any of those nurses. I don't think I've seen nurses either. Doesn't ring a bell to me.
I think that was a sitcom. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I don't know that one. Gary Graham, we've mentioned as Ambassador Saval. I think we all know him from Alien Nation, the TV show.
Mm-hmm. I loved that show.
The only thing I remember about it is the guns, the really powerful alien guns that can fire right through cars.
Right.
And I was like, you're not hiding behind a car when you get shot by one of those.
Remember the aliens got drunk on sour milk? So that was like...
yeah, I know. It's too early in the morning to talk about sour milk. I had a second year class this week when we're doing the microbiology unit. And it's using microbes to do things, real world applications of microbes. And one of those is making cheese. It's about to make cheese in the classroom. But then I forgot about it and had to clean out the test tubes.
Oh, no.
Oh, I was like, ugh. I was nearly sick. It was quite disgusting. It was young yet old cheese, if you know what I mean. Yeah. It's absolutely terrible. Don't ever make cheese. We also have Von Armstrong, which we know he reprises his role as Admiral Maxwell Forrest. And not the same. Admiral Forrest is in... Am I getting this mixed up? Is Admiral Forrest in the Kelvinverse?
I'm not sure. He might be.
Maybe I'm getting them mixed up with Admiral Pike. I think I might be, actually.
Yeah.
Not to worry. We also have... who's Koss?
He was a... Oh, that was T'Pol's... Isn't that T'Pol's...
Oh, yes.
betrothed.
T'Pol's... Yeah, that's right. He has been a Cardassian in Deep Space Nine and Next Generation. He was a Borg in TNG and a Cardassian in Deep Space Nine. I don't know him from anything else. And lastly, we have Joanna Cassidy as Therese, who is T'Pol's mother. She's been in Blade Runner and 6 Feet Under.
Yeah, she's done a lot. Joanna Cassidy is a great actor.
I love 6 Feet Under. It's such a good show.
I don't love shows about death, so I've avoided it.
Well, I think I watched it when it was on originally. I enjoyed it. Okay, so that's still the guest actors, quite a lot to go through. And then there's other people like the guy at the bar, the xenophobic guy that hates sawn flocks. We have him, don't know who he plays. We've got a couple of Xindi reptilians that attack Archer when he's having a nightmare, when he's out mountain climbing
in the desert.
So it's got a lot of people in this episode. Let's move on to let's decloak a bird of prey first.
Ooh.
Love that sound effect. What about importance to canon? Is there anything about this that is vaguely relevant to canon at all?
Well, I think to the canon of Enterprise, this is a pretty important episode. I think it's solidified. I don't come at me if I'm wrong here, but I think the Trip to Paul relationship had been simmering for quite a while, and this is the first time it's sort of out in the open. That I love the fact that it takes her mother to bring it out in the open. So I think that's important. Erica Hernandez, she's set up as a fairly important character, and I think if the show had gone another season, we would have seen the 2 ships out in the galaxy. The xenophobia of Earth, I think that plot goes on for a little while too. I know we're in the last season of Enterprise here, but I think that's also a theme. I think
that's the main arc of season 5, isn't it? make Earth great again idea. Xenophobia, let's get rid of all the aliens and humans are the most important things.
Yeah.
If memory serves. And there's something about Mars as well. There's a Mars thing going on. They're fighting with Mars or something. I'm not sure. I'm not, like you, I've not seen Enterprise in quite a while.
One thing I want to talk about a little bit is the Vulcan costumes. I found it interesting. You know, a lot of times we see the Vulcans and they're all wearing long robes and you know, but there were so many different kinds of Vulcan costumes, just like, you know, there are so many different kinds of human clothing. I thought it was really nice that whoever designed the costumes did a great job giving the Vulcans a little more interest, because T'Pol was wearing some different kinds of pantsuits, and her mom looked like a housewife, like a Vulcan housewife, the way she was dressed. There was that suit of T'Pol's father that Trip was wearing. You know, I thought it was great that it looked alien enough, but it gave some variety to Vulcan fashion.
Yeah, I think that's always our biggest complaint with Star Trek, that other non-human cultures are a bit monolithic. So this was maybe Star Trek going non-monolithic couture.
And I thought the Vulcan home was very lovely. Like, I could live in a house like that. That's a gorgeous house that she had.
Yeah, I felt almost kind of Eastern, like Japanese, Chinese, East Asia influences. Especially with the entrance. Now when you come through what feels like the front door, but it's actually the front gate, and there's like a stone garden.
Yeah, I was thinking of have you ever been to Spain and been to some of the like ancient, like the Alhambra in Granada, where there are these courtyards that allow the breeze to blow through, so that the homes can be cooled. And there's usually running water to keep the place cooler. It felt sort of like that to me as well, sort of ancient Islamic kind of.
I suppose I half expected to see like a little sand garden and a wee rake for the Japanese sand gardens. I like the idea of having running water in it to cool it down, because as we know, Vulcan's very warm.
Talking of monoplanets, the whole planet is a desert lake, which doesn't make any sense. There's got to be an ocean somewhere on Vulcan.
Yeah, you would hope, but it's always been portrayed as just very, very hot, very arid, very unpleasant, which is maybe why the Vulcans are so resilient as a species.
It's the Dune of the Star Trek universe.
I like that. And the Vulcans are the Fremen.
Yes.
Okay, let's go with that thought. Importance to canon, a little bit.
Yeah,
you get little tidbits. It keeps on popping into my head, but the stadium in the bay, right at the very beginning, where Archer's giving his speech, his homecoming speech. I quite like that, and I feel like we maybe see that again later on. When do we see the it's not the final episode, but they have the founding of the Federation, and I think this may be in the same stadium, so there's maybe another artifact from the show that we see again, but not overly important to canon at all. It's going to stand alone.
Exactly. I think, like I said, I think in the canon of Enterprise itself, it's fairly important, but in the grand scheme of Star Trek, I don't know.
Yeah. And that brings us to Trekkiness. How Trekky is this episode?
To me, it feels like the message is bonk bonk on the head. It's just really like the xenophobia storyline. You know, the racism is bad. Is it's just there, right? And it's not subtle in any way.
No, it's not at all. I think they maybe could have done the racism bit a little better, rather than just some thug in a bar saying, "Why don't you go somewhere else?
You go back to your homeworld." Yeah. I agree. There's some subtle jagged bigotry might have been more interesting. Like, I don't know, like Phlox tries to renew his medical license and they won't let him because
there's hurdles to go through because
Yeah.
he's not trusted anymore.
Yeah.
That would have been maybe nicer.
Yeah.
I think overall, for me, this episode is a bit like that. It's not very subtle.
Yeah.
I mean, it is that day in the life episode, but there's nothing to tie all the disparate storylines together, apart from the fact that they're all just coming home.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I wish there was maybe a little bit more to it, but okay.
Yeah.
So vaguely tricky is what we're saying.
Vaguely tricky. We've got some nice Vulcan stuff there too. I think the trip to Paul plot was probably my favorite of the three storylines. I thought it was the most interesting.
What I thought was maybe a bit unusual being a Vulcan. Now Vulcans are super smart and good at anything they put their mind to. Why didn't Paul's mum, Therese, why didn't she fix her own food synthesizer? Or what's the other one? The stasis unit. Because it was just a little component that needed recalibrated.
Well,
she'd have had a tricorder.
She's a lecturer, not an engineer.
I know, but she works at the Vulcan Science Institute or whatever. I mean, she should have scienced it. I was a bit surprised rather than being the helpless housewife that needs a man.
You're a physics teacher.
Yes.
If your deep freeze went on the fritz, would you be able to just go right in and fix it?
I would have a damn good try, and I would break it more and have to buy a new one, Kevin.
See, Vulcans are logical, and she knew that would be the outcome if she tried to fix it.
Yes.
So but I don't know why she didn't. There's got to be a Vulcan repair service,
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
They would remote diagnose it and just transport the new component in.
It's not logical for her to have a broken appliance for 8 years.
No, that's on her. That's the Vulcan illogical brain there. Wow. Yeah, no, I did maybe have a problem with the fact that she needed a man to turn up to fix her appliance. Right, we're seeing right through that. Okay,
and then we're also getting overtones of the bigotry on Vulcan as well, right? Because she lost her job because her daughter works for an Earth service, So
true, and then the whole arranged marriage thing, and it's because. Or is it? There's something to do with her to Paul's betrothed that her dad is high up in the Science Institute.
Yes,
and that's problematic as well. That Paul's in love with a human, and yeah, it's aspects of maybe the Vulcan culture that don't really make sense to us.
Exactly,
make them a bit monolithic. Okay, so that basically covers the Enterprise episode Home, season 4, episode 3. Let's move on. Okay, we have a couple of hours to cover the plot of Unification, so I will begin with a brief plot of Unification, which is TNG season 5, episodes 7 and 8. So in Unification, quite a lot happens. The Enterprise is en route to a terraforming mission when an admiral, who is a good admiral, cancels that mission and calls them for like an in-person meeting to say that one of the Federation's most beloved ambassadors has been in the Federation for years and years and years, has potentially defected to the Romulan Empire. And it turns out it's Spock. So the Enterprise has to go on a mission, first to Vulcan to speak to Perrin and Sarek. Sarek is very, very, very ill. Yeah, his emotions have taken over. The syndrome that he's got is addled his brain, and he doesn't leave his bed. He's very, very sick. Picard manages to have a conversation with him about who to look for if they go to Romulus, and there's a Romulan senator called Pardek. So the Enterprise is basically going to go and try to find Spock on Romulus, but they can't just go across the neutral zone with the Federation flagship and invade Romulus. So they have to go to Kronos first and ask for a favor from Gowron. Is it Gowron? Yeah, it's Gowron. Ask for a cloaked ship, but Gowron is not available. Nobody in the High Council is available for the arbiter of succession, Jean-Luc Picard. But Jean-Luc uses his diplomatic flair to basically force their hand and get a ship. So Data and Picard are going to go on this Klingon ship, cross the neutral zone, all cloaked, and look like Romulans because Dr. Crusher does her prosthetic thing quite well and makes them look like very, very accurate Romulans. And they go there and they meet Spock. Spock's in the underground on Romulus, and he's trying to promote the idea of Vulcan Romulan reintegration because, as we know, hundreds of years ago, some Vulcans left and became Romulans after colonizing Romulus. And then there's another plot going on where there's some wreckage of Vulcan ships. So it leads the Enterprise to go and investigate what this wreckage might be. And it leads them to a depot, like an abandoned ship depot, where they discover that another ship's been stolen, and there's this warship that comes in to kind of basically steal stuff. They destroy that ship, and then they go somewhere else, and they're waiting for a fat Ferengi, and there's an alien woman that has 4 hands and plays jazz music and Klingon opera. And see, there's quite a lot in this. She sucks salt sticks. And what else happens? So turns out that there's a plot by Sela, played by Denise Crosby, to re-invade Vulcan by Romulans. And this is what the stolen Vulcan ships are for. But they're going under the flag of peace, when actually they've got a military invasion force and they're going to take over Vulcan. Don't know how they're really going to do this because Vulcan's in the middle of the Federation.
Exactly.
They're going to be swarmed by, and it's 3 little kind of troop transports. They're going to be swarmed by Federation ships, but yeah.
Sela doesn't think things through all the greatest.
No, she's not a very good bad guy. And then so the plot is thwarted, and the Romulans blow up their own troop transports, kill thousands of people, and Spock decides to stay on Romulus to promote reintegration. And that's pretty much the storyline. Probably missed quite a lot out there, but a lot happens. Oh, yeah, Sarek dies. We discover. Yeah, that's a big plot point. And Picard is left to tell Spock that his father has died.
In fact, he mind melds with Spock at the end, so that Spock can access his father's memories, right?
Because Picard had already mind melded with Sarek in the episode. Sarek. Yeah, that was the episode. Yeah. Okay, so a lot happened in that episode. One thing that I really, really didn't like with this episode, at the beginning of the episode, when the actor now lists the people that are going to be in it at the beginning after the opening credits, and starring Denise Crosby as Sela, kind of spoils that surprise that Sela's going to be in it. Didn't appreciate this.
Did it have Leonard Nimoy as Spock as well in the?
Oh, I can't remember.
Because Spock doesn't show up till the very end of the first episode, right?
That's right. Yeah. His voice comes out of like the background, and then you see him. It's like, oh, Spock. Maybe. Why did they choose, if they didn't have Spock in the opening credits? Why did they choose to have Sela? Because I think both of them are quite big.
I think it's it's got to do with union rules, I'm sure.
Yeah, I want to be credited for this role. Like, okay, that's fair. It's annoying, but fair. One thing I did notice about this episode, the episode aired on, I think, the 4th of November, 1991, and 11 days before that, Gene Roddenberry passed away.
Yes.
So you got the title credit, Gene Roddenberry, in the years he was alive.
Yeah.
So I thought it was quite poignant. I like that.
Yeah, no, I thought that was a lovely touch as well.
Yeah. Okay. Who is not in this episode? Might be easier to cover.
Who is not in this episode?
Yes, because that's maybe a shorter list than who's in it.
From like our main, you're talking
no,
from our
just from the all actors that exist in the world.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people in this episode.
Yeah, so obviously the main one for us will be Leonard Nimoy as Spock, who we obviously know who he is and what he's been in before. We get Denise Crosby as Sela, reprising her role again, and we've got Mark Leonard as Sarek.
Yes, and also Joanna Miles is back again as Perrin, Sarek's wife.
Indeed, yeah.
You know,
not Spock's mom.
No,
Spock's mom was Amanda.
This is Spock's stepmother.
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
And yes.
And Perrin, I thought she was an interesting character in this episode. You know, she was standing up for her husband, of course, but she also didn't. Maybe she's just the Vulcan, living on Vulcan has rubbed off on her, because when Picard was asked to be left alone with Sarek, just the tone and her tenor of her voice just changed, and I'm like, why are you being so bitchy all of a sudden? Like, and why wouldn't you want to stay if you love this man so much and stay and make sure he's okay? There was just a couple things there that.
Yeah, what is it she says to Picard? Like, he will speak to you or he will not, and then she walks away.
And then she walks away.
Maybe is that just a consequence of having cared for someone for so long? You're just it's been a lot to deal with. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Living with it's like living with someone with dementia.
Oh yeah, I get it. We have, I don't know how to say his name. Is it Malachi?
I think so. Yeah.
It's Pardek. I nearly said Malachi, but then I realized it's probably Malachi. So he's appeared in the original series. Apparently, I'm not sure who as, and I'm not sure that I've seen him in anything else. To be honest, yeah,
let's find out.
Are we googling at that? What's he been in? Lots of stuff in the 60s. The Thief, Stunts, Doomsday Flight, Assault on the Wayne, Beau Jest. I'm kind of vaguely familiar with some of these films.
Yeah. Malachi Throne was in the original pilot of Star Trek. He was in the cage.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Who was he in the cage?
Well, he was Roddenberry's first choice to play Dr. Boyce, but he turned that down. And then he was the voice of the Talosian Keeper. And then 2 years later, he came back as Commodore Mendez, in the Menagerie, the Commodore that's court-martialing Spock.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
My ChatGPT notes have failed me again. That's interesting. So I think that we've got the Klingon captain as well, who plays a kind of biggish role because he just mocks Picard and Data, and he's a bit grumpy about having to take them to Romulus.
That was Stephen Root plays that character.
That's right, Captain Cavada.
I love Stephen Root. He is a great actor. Usually known for comedy more often than drama. Did you ever watch News Radio, the sitcom News Radio?
No.
He played this big, flashy owner of the radio station who's like a Trump-like billionaire. He was very funny on that. Jimmy James was his name, and he was in Office Space, the movie Office Space. He was in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie. He was in Ghost. He was, you would know him to see him outside of makeup.
The Klingon makeup, yeah.
He had a recurring role on The West Wing. He was
The West Wing.
He was in NYPD Blue, CSI, Boston Legal. You know, he's made the rounds of all the shows.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, and he was the voice of Bill Dauterive on King of the Hill. Did you ever,
okay.
Did you ever
it's not something I watched, but I know what it is. That's interesting.
Yeah. A lot of credits Stephen Root has, and I find him really a great actor. Very funny, usually. And to be playing the Klingon captain, it's a different kind of role for him.
Yeah, it's like when Iggy Pop played a Vorta.
Yeah.
Okay, what about, so that's guest cast covered. What about our importance to canon?
Oh, there's nothing here. Let's move along.
Let's move on. What about trekkiness?
Let's go back. Importance to canon. There is so much here, right? We're going back to the original series with Sarek and Spock. There are direct ties between these episodes, and Star Trek VI, because these were almost used as promotions for the movie, and so some of the stuff that they talk about as happening in the past are the events of Star Trek VI. So that ties it together. Sela is back, so there's another connect. There's a lot of callbacks to previous plot lines, and the Romulan reunification plot sticks around. You know,
it does. Yeah, the call forwards.
Right. So it goes forward, and Spock is still on Romulus when the whole issue that kicked off the time loop that started the Kelvin timeline is
the Romulan sun going nova. And, Spock and the jellyfish, and
Spock ends up trapped back in time in this alternate universe. It all happens because of this episode, because they decided Spock is going to be and then it goes as far as the 32nd century when we get Discovery. Right. Who would have thought there would ever be a Unification 3? Yeah,
I know Rhea would have wanted this to mention Unification 3 because she didn't think it was fair that we're just covering the first 2 episodes of Unification. But Discovery, is that season 4?
Season 4, I believe.
Yeah. They have a Unification Part 3, which covers the reunification of
Ni'Var.
Vulcans and Romulans on Ni'Var. Yeah. So it's literally everything about this episode is important. I was thinking about it yesterday. I was thinking, is it maybe the most important episode in terms of canon?
The most important?
Is it just because it's like a spider with all its legs? It just touches so many different points.
It could be. Yeah, you're right. I think the biggest thing though is we did have Sarek on the show in an episode, and we had that brief little cameo from DeForest Kelley as Admiral McCoy in the pilot. But the fact that Leonard Nimoy as Spock appeared on Next Generation was huge for this show. And just like there are fans today that say Discovery isn't real Star Trek, there were fans back in the 80s and early 90s that said Next Gen is not real Star Trek because it doesn't have Kirk and Spock on it. And the fact that Spock appeared on this show validated it in the eyes of a lot of people, I think. Validated the whole series.
Absolutely. I was reading earlier that Leonard Nimoy had asked for like $1 million to cameo in this episode, but they renegotiated him down to just basic union pay. How do you go from wanting $1 million to just getting like minimum wage or whatever it is? I thought it was a bit strange. But they, like you said, they used it as what was minimum Screen Actors Guild pay.
Yeah.
I don't know what value that is, but it seems like it's nowhere near £1 million.
Well, again, I think this ties into Star Trek 6, right? So if you consider these episodes part of promotion for Star Trek 6, then he doesn't need to get paid as much because it would have been part of his Star Trek 6 contract. Exactly. And he was a producer on Star Trek 6, so I'm sure he made enough money.
A ton of money, yeah. This episode aired just weeks before Star Trek 6 came out in the movie theaters. So yeah, it was a perfect kind of step on to go and see the movie.
I love Star Trek 6 too. That's a great movie.
I love the soundtrack for it by Cliff Idleman. It's just, it gives me Holst, the Planet Suite vibes. Is it Mars, the bringer of war? It's just very Klingon almost, I think. So yeah, that super important canon, like 11 out of 10 for canon.
Yeah.
I
agree.
I think in terms of trekkiness, you can't get any more Trekkie an episode.
No, it's steeped in original series, right?
There's literally trekking going on with like missions to Vulcan, Kronos, the Romulan homeworld. Then all the different the Federation junk depot, and then that planet with the Klingon, the piano playing woman.
I loved the scene where they go to the junkyard, and Deanna is telling Riker all of the sort of thought processes of the guy who's running the place, how it's his little kingdom, and Riker just turns around and says, "Well, then I guess this is your job." Like if you can read this guy, you take over, because why tell me how to do it when you can do it yourself?
Yeah. And then the what's his name? He's I can't remember his name or his species.
Is he not? He was a Zakdorn.
Is he one of the guys with the game? That's Stratagema.
Yeah, same species as that guy. I think it was Zakdorn is the species.
That's right, yeah. He thinks that Riker's just put Troy in charge because being in charge of a depot, you wouldn't necessarily get to see many handsome women around. Which I thought was an interesting word choice.
Yeah,
a handsome woman.
Handsome woman.
Yeah. Very, very Trekkie, this whole episode.
I agree.
Lots of Trekness going on. Cool. Right. Let's have a wee weapon fire.
Wow.
Sounded like a TOS Klingon disruptor.
I think so.
That was just to wake you up, though.
Thank you. Yeah, I need that.
Sleepy. Good. Okay, let's debate.
Debate.
Yes. Which episode, Kevin, is the better episode?
By the time that Home was being made in 2004, I think everybody involved in Star Trek was tired. And I don't think it comes off as well as they hoped it would, especially when it comes to Archer. I think we want our Star Trek captains to be heroic, not mopey and sullen and quick to anger. And Archer just wasn't likable in this episode at all. Whereas in Unification, we have a captain who feels he's got a duty to not just Starfleet and the Federation, but to Sarek and his family. And he undertakes the mission. I feel like Picard undertakes this mission not just because he's ordered to by the Admiralty, but because he really does feel this connection to the Sarek family, and he needs to find out what really is going on. So that puts Picard in a much better light for me than Archer. So I don't think there's a lot to debate here, really, Joe. I really think that Unification is a way much better story than Home is.
I'm not going to tell you right away what I
Okay.
think.
All right.
Do you think, because I was looking at the air date for Home was 2004, which is only a couple of years after the events of 9/11.
Oh, yeah.
And all the kind of potentially Islamophobia, Muslims are bad rhetoric came out. Do you think that was maybe Star Trek's way of, like Star Trek does, and always kind of reflecting the current state of the world?
Oh, for sure.
Addressing social issues.
Yeah.
Was their way of doing that, even though it was really clunky.
The Xindi attack on Florida is a total parallel to the Twin Towers, to the 9/11 bombings. It's a total parallel. And again, I just feel that in this case, Star Trek felt they went a little too heavy-handed. It just, yeah.
Blunt instrument. I get it. Okay, so it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Unification's a better episode. Let's just say that.
Yeah. There was some feedback on the poll that basically said the same thing. Although Danny Galeas said he voted for Unification, but I think it works more for people who had watched the original series previous to TNG and get more out of the Spock appearance. The rest of the story around it is kind of weak. How do you feel the story of Unification is weak?
Does it rely too much on Spock's cameo? It's like, we're tying this all together. I'm trying to imagine what it would be like if Spock wasn't in it and they had some other random Vulcan that'd been an ambassador for a year that he'd never met before. If it would work the same. But in terms of Trekkiness, we had all the things we like about Star Trek. With multiple missions and side missions. Geordi had this thing evaluating that wreckage. Everybody had something to do.
And it, sort of like the chase, it was we've got to do this in order to do that, in order to do this. There was like a whole sequence of events. They couldn't do the Romulus mission without going to the Klingon homeworld first.
Yeah.
And they couldn't ask the Klingons for what they wanted if Picard hadn't stood for Gowron, before that. So this episode really feels like Next Gen can be so episodic and not ever even think about its own history. But this episode really takes a look at what has happened on Next Generation and the original series, and says, okay, we need all of this story, all of this, what's the word I'm looking for? Not dogma, but the canon of the show. We're going to use it all and give the fans something that I think they're going to like, because we are using our own canon.
That totally makes sense to me, and it feels like the way you put it, like a romp across the stars. I mean, they've got all these places to go and aliens to be able to see.
And in some ways, it's not just one romp; it's two, because we've got Picard and Data over here, and we've got Riker and the Enterprise doing their thing. And they're working separately, but on the same mission.
But they don't know that they're working on the same mission. They just happen to collide.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
And then there's Rhea's comment, obviously, about it being a three-parter, so we should be talking about it as a three-parter. Rhea, our podcast, our rules.
Unification 3 is a different beast altogether, I think. So.
Yeah, different show, different beast. So different episode, so it doesn't count.
There you go.
Okay, so we both voted for Unification, which means we don't have to rely on our listeners for their vote, but it would be useful as ever to look at how the votes went. So on the Facebook poll, Home got 3 votes, Do you know what? Same future. We should just multiply all the votes by 1,000 to make it sound like we have many, many listeners. Yeah. So Home got 3,000 votes.
Wow.
And Unification got 9,000 votes.
Oh my goodness.
Exactly on the money. And with Discord, Home got 1,000 votes and Unification got 4,000 votes. So no, we're not allowed to add them all up because people vote multiple times on the different services. But it looks like with a clear lead, Unification wins from our listener point of view.
That's awesome.
So Unification, parts 1 and 2, moves forward into round 2, which we will get to sometime in 2070.
Yes.
Possibly.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, you're up with the spin the randomizer.
Is it time?
It is my most favoritist bit.
All right. Let me share my screen here. And here we go. Can you see the wheel of randomness?
Wheel of randomness.
I'm clicking to spin. Look at it go.
I'm getting dizzy.
Yes. We have another Enterprise episode, Similitude.
Okay, don't know it.
I don't know it off the title either, and it will be going up against Parallax from Voyager. So it's Similitude versus Parallax.
Okay, so I just quickly Googled Dr. Flock's clones trip after he's severely injured in an accident that disables the ship inside a hazardous space cloud. Archer faces an ethical dilemma as the clone gains sentience and does not want to die, so his organs may be harvested. It seems quite dark. Mm-hmm. And then Voyager Parallax is a really early episode, isn't it? Is it not? It's like the 3rd episode or something.
Is it?
Yeah, it's season 1, episode 3.
Wow.
Does that mean it is the 2nd episode, really? Because the first was a 2-parter.
Yeah.
Interesting. The crew runs into a quantum singularity and discovers a trapped ship. But during rescue attempts, they realise that the ship is in jeopardy as their own. It's like a reflection of them.
Right.
Oh, there we go. We shall be talking about that in a couple of weeks' time. Listeners,
fun.
We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, to continue our discussion there. Or you can follow the network on Twitter and Instagram at BQN Podcasts. Or join us on our Discord server where the Bat-Left Battle polls will always be posted. So, Kevin, where can people find you when you're not trying to reunite families that have become separated?
Oh, well, I would love to be able to do that. But if I'm not doing that, you can find me in the BQN Collective on Facebook. I post all the polls for the Bat-Left Battles. You can find me in our Discord server. And you can also hear me on True North Nerds. We are having a little bit of a renaissance on that show. I think we're changing the format up a little bit, but that's going to be a new episode should be dropping very soon of that as well.
Fun.
So, Joe, where can people find you when you aren't rock climbing in the Southwest American desert?
Oh, yeah, I'm too scared to rock climb.
Are you?
I would be scared the piton things fell out and I plummeted to my death. Yeah, when I'm not doing that, you can find me increasingly less on social media. I'm kind of close to just ditching social media because it makes so much time. I've limited my phone to give me access to social media apps for only 20 minutes per day.
Oh, wow.
I've done that and it's quite working. My screen time has drastically come down, which is good. So, but if you want to reach out, you can get me on the BQN Collective on Facebook. You can get me on our Discord server. You can maybe find me on Instagram and X at JoeyJoe77UK, or you can email me joepodcast@gmail.com. And then we need a wee promo, don't we?
Yes, we do.
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, Kelvin, and Kristen. Whether you've got Xbox or Nintendo, check out Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. 2 episodes enter the arena, 1 comes out victorious. Join hosts Joe and Kevin, and a guest, as they debate which should win the Batleth battle. Grab your popcorn as you listen to Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed, but should definitely check out. Hosted by Mark and Matt. Don your apron for The Food Replicator, where Matthew eats and drinks his way through the Star Trek cocktail and 3 cookbooks. Beam Aboard Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Steven. In order to not repeat it, listen to History with the Zalagis, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissy and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissy and Thad. Curl up with a good book and delve into Beta Canon with Peter, host of the online Trek Book Club on Twitter, and his new companion, Trek Book Club podcast. Test your Trek knowledge with Trexperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Whether you're a member of Starfleet Federation or Planetary Union, go check out Union Federation, covering current Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Head over to YouTube and watch The View Screen live on Sundays, your Trek-inspired talk show hosted by Kelvin and Amy, with Season 2 starting in September for a 10-week run. Spill the tea with Christos while he discusses current Trek news and events and explores the world of fandom via guest interviews, all with a LGBTQIA+ perspective on What's the T-Bev. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind with monthly script readings, Let's Fly, a Discovery reaction show, It's Green, a cornucopia of topics, Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
So if you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can join our Let's Fly reaction show, script readings, and enjoy our special patron-only shows of It's Green and Amy's Math Moments. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch our messages. If becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support the show by sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or hitting the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, and leaving us a star rating and a written review. That helps others to find the show.
At this time, we would like to thank our executive producers who make this all possible, and a special thanks to Mark White for artwork and me, Joe Keegan, for our show music. Thank you for joining the Batleth Battle, and until next time.
I think I'll take this opportunity to remove my ears.
Logic is the beginning of wisdom, not the end.